Welcome to my channel. Have you ever wanted to speak English but felt nervous or afraid to try? I know exactly how it feels. I remember the first time I tried to speak English. I was sitting on a train. Two women were speaking English, and I could not understand much. I wanted to talk to them, but I was scared. I did not know many words. I did not know if they would understand me. But I tried, and something amazing happened. They understood me, and it made me very happy. That small moment changed everything. Today, I want to share my story with you. I will tell you how I struggled, how I practiced, and how I finally learned to speak English confidently. If you want to speak English better, stay with me. You will learn tips and techniques that really work. Chapter 1. My name is Ariel. I want to tell you about my first struggle to talk in English. When I started learning English, I was very excited, but I was also very afraid. I knew some words. I knew basic grammar. I could read small texts. But when it was time to speak, everything disappeared from my mind. My heart started beating fast. My hands felt cold. I wanted to speak, but my mouth did not move. One day, I was sitting in a small cafe near my house. Two young men were sitting at the next table. They were speaking English. I could understand some words, but not everything. I wanted to join their conversation. I wanted to practice. I told myself, "This is your chance." But another voice in my head said, "What if you make mistakes? What if they laugh at you?" I stayed silent. I drank my coffee and listened. When they left, I felt sad. I felt angry with myself because I did not try. That day, I understood something very important. My biggest problem was not grammar. It was not vocabulary. My biggest problem was fear. I was afraid of making mistakes. I was afraid of looking foolish. Many English learners feel the same way. Maybe you also feel like this. You know some English, but you are scared to use it. The next week, I decided to change something. I told myself that I would speak at least one sentence in English every day. It did not matter if the sentence was simple. It did not matter if it had mistakes. I just wanted to speak. On Monday, I went to a small shop. The shop assistant greeted me in English because she saw my English book in my hand. She said, "Are you learning English?" I felt nervous again, but I smiled and said, "Yes, I am learning English. I am beginner." I knew it was not perfect. I knew I should say, "I am a beginner." But she understood me. She smiled and said, "That's great. Keep practicing." That small conversation was only 30 seconds long, but it was a big victory for me. For the first time, I spoke English to a stranger, and the world did not end. Nobody laughed. Nobody judged me. I walked home with a big smile on my face. I felt stronger. I felt more confident. After that day, I started speaking to myself in English at home. When I woke up, I said, "Good morning. Today is a new day." When I made breakfast, I said, "I am making tea. I am cutting bread." My sentences were very simple, but they were real. They were about my life. At first, it felt strange. I felt a little crazy talking to myself. But slowly, it became normal. My brain started thinking in simple English. In the beginning, I made many mistakes. Sometimes I forgot words. Sometimes I stopped in the middle of a sentence because I did not know what to say next. But instead of stopping completely, I tried to use easier words. For example, if I did not know the word delicious, I said, "The food is very good." If I did not know the word exhausted, I said, "I am very tired." I learned that you do not need difficult words to communicate. Simple English is powerful. One evening, I joined an online English speaking group. I was very nervous before the meeting. I almost closed my laptop, but I remembered my promise. I would speak one sentence every day. In the meeting, there were 5 students from different countries. The teacher asked, "Can you introduce yourself?" My heart started beating fast again. It was my turn. I said, "Hello, my name is Ariel. I am learning English because I want to travel and meet new people." My voice was shaking, but I finished my sentence. The teacher said, "Very good, Ariel. Thank you for sharing." That moment was very important for me. I understood that speaking is like training a muscle. When you go to the gym for the first time, your body feels weak. You cannot lift heavy weights. But if you train every day, your muscles grow stronger. Speaking English is the same. The more you speak, the stronger your speaking skill becomes. I also learned another lesson. Many students wait until they feel ready. They say, "I will speak when my grammar is perfect." Or they say, "I will speak when I know more words." But the truth is, you will never feel completely ready. Confidence does not come before speaking. Confidence comes after speaking. One night, I met a tourist who was looking for directions. He asked me in English, "Excuse me, where's the train station?" For a second, I felt panic, but then I answered slowly, "Go straight, then turn left. The station is near the bank." My sentences were simple. My pronunciation was not perfect, but he understood me. He said, "Thank you very much." I said, "You're welcome." When I walked away, I felt something new. I felt proud. I realized that English is not about being perfect. It is about helping someone understand you. It is about sharing ideas. It is about connection. This was the beginning of my journey. I was still a beginner. I still made many mistakes, but I was not silent anymore. I was speaking. I was trying. I was learning from every small conversation. Each small step gave me more courage. Each small success gave me more motivation. If you are struggling to speak English, I want you to remember my story. Start small. Speak one sentence today. Do not wait for perfection. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. When you open your mouth and speak, even with mistakes, you are already winning. Chapter 2. After I started speaking one sentence every day, I felt more confident. But I had a new problem. I did not know enough words. Sometimes I wanted to say something, but I did not have the vocabulary. I stopped in the middle of a sentence. I felt frustrated. I asked myself, how can I speak if I do not know the words? One day, I went to my English class. Our teacher asked us, "What is the best way to learn new words?" Many students gave different answers. One student said, memorize long word lists. Another student said, use flashcards. I listened carefully because I had the same question. Our teacher smiled and said, the best way to learn vocabulary is reading. I was surprised. Reading looked simple. It did not look like a strong method. But our teacher explained something important. She said, when you read, you see words in sentences. You see how they connect with other words. You see how they are used in real situations. This helps your brain remember them naturally. That day, I decided to try. I went to the library and chose a small, simple book. It was not difficult. It was a story for beginners. The story was interesting, and I enjoyed reading it. When I found a new word, I did not stop for every word. I only checked the important words in a dictionary. I read for 30 minutes. On the first day, I learned maybe 5 new words. It did not feel like a big success. But I continued. The next day, I read again. And the next day. After 1 week, I noticed something amazing. Some words that I saw on Monday appeared again on Thursday. This time, I remembered their meaning. I did not need the dictionary. I felt very happy. Reading gave me more than vocabulary. It also showed me grammar in action. I saw how sentences were built. I saw how questions were formed. I saw how people used simple English to express deep ideas. I started reading aloud sometimes. When I read aloud, I practiced pronunciation and rhythm. It was like 2 exercises in one. But I still had a small problem. I could read and understand, but speaking was still difficult. Then I learned about a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is very simple. You listen to a short audio in English and you repeat it at the same time. You try to copy the pronunciation, the speed, and the intonation. The first time I tried shadowing, it was very hard. The speaker talked too fast. My mouth could not follow the words. After 5 minutes, my mouth felt tired. I wanted to stop. But I remembered something important. When you train your body, your muscles hurt at the beginning. It is normal. The same thing happens with speaking muscles. So I continued. I chose shorter and slower recordings. I listened to one sentence and repeated it many times. At first, I repeated only the last word of each sentence. Then I repeated 2 words. Slowly, I could repeat the whole sentence. After 1 week of shadowing, I noticed a big change. When I spoke, my sentences came faster. I did not stop so often. One evening, I met my friend, who also learns English. We decided to speak only in English for 15 minutes. Before, I was always searching for words. This time, something was different. The words came more easily. I used some new vocabulary from the book I was reading. My friend said, "Your English is better now." That sentence made me very happy. I understood something very important. Vocabulary does not grow in one day. It grows little by little. When you read every day and listen every day, your brain collects words quietly. You may not see the progress immediately, but it is happening. Another method helped me a lot. I started keeping a small notebook. When I found a useful word or expression, I wrote one example sentence with it. Not 10 sentences, only one simple sentence. For example, when I learned the word improve, I wrote, I want to improve my English every day. I read my notebook before sleeping. It took only 5 minutes, but it helped me remember. I also learned to use simple synonyms. If I forgot a word, I did not stop speaking. I used another word. For example, if I forgot huge, I said very big. If I forgot angry, I said not happy. This gave me freedom. I did not feel trapped anymore. One special moment changed my thinking completely. I was watching a short video in English without subtitles. Before, I always needed subtitles. This time, I understood almost everything. I was surprised. I realized that my vocabulary had grown naturally. I did not memorize long lists. I did not study for hours. I just read and listened every day. That day, I felt proud of myself. I understood that learning vocabulary is not about pressure. It is about consistency. It is about small daily actions. 30 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of shadowing, 5 minutes of review. These small steps created big change. If you feel that your vocabulary is weak, do not worry. Start simple. Choose a book that you enjoy. Read every day, even if it is only a few pages. Listen to short audios and repeat them. Do not try to learn 50 words in one day. Learn 5 words, but see them many times. I am still learning new words every day. I am still reading. I am still practicing shadowing. Vocabulary learning never stops. But now I am not frustrated. I know the process works. I trust the process. If you want to grow your vocabulary, read, listen, and repeat. Do it every day. Be patient. One day, you will watch a video or have a conversation, and you will understand more than before. That moment will make you smile. That moment will show you that your hard work is working. Chapter 3. Even after I improved my vocabulary and practiced every day, I still had one big problem. I was afraid of making mistakes. When I spoke English, I was always thinking about grammar. I was thinking about tenses. I was thinking about word order. Because of this, I spoke very slowly. Sometimes I stopped in the middle of a sentence. Sometimes I said nothing at all. One day in class, our teacher asked a simple question. She said, "What did you do yesterday?" I knew the answer. I wanted to say, "I visited my friend and we watched a movie." It was not a difficult sentence, but in my head, I was checking everything. Is it visit or visited? Should I say watch or watched? While I was thinking, another student answered. I lost my chance. After the class, I felt disappointed. I knew the words, I knew the grammar, but I was too afraid to speak. That evening, I asked myself an important question. Why am I so afraid of mistakes? When I was a child and learning my first language, I made many mistakes. But I was not afraid. I spoke every day. I learned step by step. The next day, I decided to change my mindset. I told myself, mistakes are not my enemy. Mistakes are my teacher. It was not easy to believe this at first, but I wanted to try. A few days later, I had an opportunity to practice. I met a tourist in the city center. He was looking at a map and looked confused. I asked him in English, "Can I help you?" He smiled and said, "Yes, please. I am looking for the museum." I started explaining, but I made a mistake. I said, "Go straight and turn right in the traffic light." I knew it was wrong. It should be at the traffic light. For 1 second, I wanted to stop, but I continued speaking. I finished my explanation. He understood me. He said, "Thank you very much." When he left, I thought about my mistake. Yes, my grammar was not perfect, but communication happened. He understood me. The message was clear. That moment was very powerful for me. I understood that communication is more important than perfection. In the next class, our teacher spoke about mistakes. She said, "If you never make mistakes, you are not trying hard enough." That sentence stayed in my mind. She explained that language learning is like learning to ride a bicycle. At the beginning, you fall, you lose balance, but every fall teaches you something. Slowly, you ride better. She also said something very interesting. She said, "When you focus too much on grammar while speaking, your brain becomes overloaded. Speaking should be natural. Grammar practice can be done during reading and writing. When you speak, focus on your idea." This advice changed everything for me. After that lesson, I made a small rule for myself. When I speak, I do not correct myself in the middle of the sentence. I finish my idea first. If I notice a mistake later, I learn from it, but I do not stop speaking. This rule helped me speak more smoothly. One evening, I joined an online discussion group again. The topic was hobbies. It was my turn to speak. I said, "I like play football and I go to park every weekend." I knew there were mistakes. I forgot to play. I forgot the park. But I continued. I spoke for 1 minute. When I finished, the group understood me. The teacher corrected me kindly. She said, "Very good, Ariel. Just remember to say, 'I like to play football and I go to the park.'" I repeated the correct sentences. I did not feel embarrassed. I felt proud because I spoke without fear. I also started to see mistakes in a different way. Before, when I made a mistake, I felt sad. Now, when I make a mistake, I feel curious. I ask myself, why is this wrong? What is the correct form? This curiosity helps me improve faster. Another important moment happened at my workplace. A customer asked me about a product. I explained it in English. In the middle of my explanation, I used the wrong tense. I noticed it, but I did not stop. I continued speaking. The customer understood everything and bought the product. After the conversation, I thought about my mistake and corrected it in my mind. But I was happy because I did not let fear control me. Slowly, my confidence started to grow. I was not perfect, but I was brave. I understood that mistakes are part of the journey. Even native speakers make mistakes sometimes. Nobody speaks perfectly all the time. If you are afraid of making mistakes, I want to tell you something important. Your goal is not to be perfect. Your goal is to communicate. When you speak, you are practicing. Practice means improvement. Improvement means progress. Try this simple exercise. Every day, speak for 5 minutes about your day. Do not stop for mistakes. Just speak. Record yourself if you want. Listen later and notice 1 or 2 mistakes. Learn from them. But during speaking, focus only on your message. Today, I still make mistakes, but I am not afraid anymore. Mistakes do not stop me. They help me move forward. Every mistake is a small lesson. Every lesson makes me stronger. Remember this. If you wait until you are perfect, you will never speak. If you accept mistakes, you will grow. Speak with courage. Speak with simple words. Speak with confidence. Step by step, your English will become better. Chapter 4. After I learned to accept mistakes, I felt freer when I spoke English. But there was still something that bothered me. My pronunciation was not clear. Sometimes people asked me to repeat my sentences. Sometimes they did not understand me the first time. I felt disappointed. I wanted to sound more natural. I wanted my English to be clear and confident. One day in class, our teacher asked us to read a short paragraph aloud. When it was my turn, I read slowly. I tried to pronounce every word correctly. After I finished, my teacher smiled kindly. She said, "Ariel, your grammar is good. Your vocabulary is improving, but you need to work on pronunciation and rhythm." I felt a little embarrassed, but I was also thankful. I wanted to improve. After the lesson, I asked her, "How can I improve my pronunciation?" She told me about a technique called shadowing. She explained that shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating immediately, almost at the same time. She said it is like being a shadow. You follow the speaker closely. That evening, I went home and searched for a short English audio. I chose a simple video with slow speech. I pressed play and tried to repeat the sentences. It was very difficult. The speaker talked faster than me. I could not follow every word. My tongue felt heavy. My mouth felt tired after only 5 minutes. I wanted to stop. But I remembered what I learned before. When you train your body, you feel pain at the beginning. When you train your speaking muscles, you also feel discomfort. So I decided to continue. I started with only 1 minute of shadowing. Then I rested. Then I did another minute. After 1 week, something changed. My mouth moved more easily. I could follow the speaker better. I started to notice intonation. I noticed how the voice goes up in questions and down in statements. I noticed how words connect in fast speech. For example, want to sounded like wanna. Going to sounded like gonna. These small details made English sound more natural. One special moment gave me a lot of confidence. I was speaking with a classmate, and she said, "Your pronunciation is clearer now." That small comment made me very happy. I realized that my daily practice was working. But I did not stop there. I also learned another powerful method. It was called thinking aloud. At first, I did not understand what it meant. My teacher explained, You think all day in your native language. Now try to think in English, and sometimes say your thoughts aloud. It sounded strange, but I wanted to try. The next morning when I woke up, I said softly, "I am waking up. I feel sleepy. Today I will go to work." When I was walking to the bus stop, I said, "The weather is nice. The sky is blue. I see many people." My sentences were simple, but they were real. In the beginning, it was difficult to think in English. My thoughts in my native language were fast and complex. In English, I had to make them simple. But this was a good exercise. It forced me to use the words I already knew. It trained my brain to react in English without translating. One day, something surprising happened. A tourist asked me for help again. This time, I did not translate in my head. I answered immediately. My sentences were simple and clear. I did not feel panic. I felt calm. After the conversation, I realized that thinking aloud helped me respond faster. I also practiced pronunciation in another way. I recorded my voice on my phone. I read a short text and recorded it. Then I listened carefully. At first, I did not like my voice. It sounded strange, but I listened again and compared it with the original audio. I noticed small differences. I tried again and recorded a new version. Slowly, my pronunciation improved. Another important lesson I learned was about stress in words. In English, some syllables are stronger than others. For example, in the word important, the stress is on the second syllable. When I learned this, my pronunciation became clearer. I started paying attention to stressed syllables when I listened to native speakers. One evening, I had a longer conversation with a visitor from another country. We spoke for almost 20 minutes. He understood me without asking me to repeat. That moment was very powerful for me. I remembered the time when I was too afraid to speak. Now I was having a real conversation. I understood something very important. Pronunciation does not improve by magic. It improves with practice and patience. Shadowing trains your ears and your mouth. Thinking aloud trains your brain. Recording your voice helps you see your progress. If you want to improve your pronunciation, start small. Choose a short audio. Practice shadowing for 5 minutes every day. Think aloud about simple things in your daily life. Do not worry if you feel strange at the beginning. It is normal. Today I still practice shadowing sometimes. I still think aloud when I walk alone. These small habits keep my English strong. I am not perfect, but I am much better than before. Remember this. Clear pronunciation is not about sounding exactly like a native speaker. It is about being understood. When people understand you easily, you feel confident. And when you feel confident, you speak more. Step by step, your speaking becomes natural and strong. Chapter 5. After I improved my pronunciation and started thinking in English, something new happened in my life. English was no longer only a subject in my notebook. It became part of my daily life. I started to use English outside the classroom. This was a big step for me. It was exciting, but also a little scary. At that time, I was working part-time in a small cafe. In the beginning, I only spoke English in class. At work, I used my native language most of the time. But one day my manager said, "We will have many international customers this week. Ariel, can you help them in English?" My heart started beating fast. This was a real test. On the first day, a couple came into the cafe. They looked at the menu and seemed confused. I walked to their table and said, "Hello, can I help you?" They smiled and started asking questions about the drinks. They spoke fast and I did not understand everything. For a second, I felt nervous. But instead of panicking, I said, "Can you please repeat more slowly?" They repeated their question, and this time I understood. I explained the menu in simple English. I said, "This coffee is strong. This one is sweet. This cake has chocolate." My sentences were short and simple, but they were clear. The couple thanked me and ordered 2 coffees and 1 cake. When they left, they said, "Your English is very good." I knew it was not perfect, but I felt proud. That day, I learned an important lesson. Real-life practice is different from classroom practice. In real life, people speak fast. There is noise around you. You feel pressure, but this pressure makes you stronger. Every conversation is like training. After that, I decided to use English more often at work. Even when I was not sure, I tried. Sometimes I made mistakes. Once I said, "You want sugar?" instead of, "Do you want sugar?" I noticed the mistake later, but the customer understood me. Communication happened. That was the most important thing. I also started using English in small daily situations. When I watched videos online, I turned off subtitles. When I listened to music, I tried to understand the lyrics. When I walked alone, I described what I saw in English. I said, "There is a big tree. A child is playing. The car is moving fast." These small sentences trained my brain. One weekend, I joined a local sports club where many foreigners played football. At first, I was quiet. I was afraid I would not understand them. But during the game, one player shouted, "Pass the ball!" I understood immediately. I passed the ball. Later, I said, "Good job." We started talking during breaks. We spoke about football, weather, and work. The conversation was simple, but it was real. That day, I felt something different. I was not translating in my head anymore. Words came more naturally. I was reacting in English. It was not fast like a native speaker, but it was smooth. I realized that using English daily was changing my mind slowly. Another important moment happened when a customer at the cafe asked me for directions in detail. Before, I would give short answers. This time, I explained clearly. I said, "Go straight for 2 blocks, then turn left at the traffic light. You will see a big building on your right." I spoke for almost 1 minute without stopping. After the conversation, I felt proud of my progress. Using English daily also helped me discover my weaknesses. Sometimes I did not know specific words. For example, I did not know how to explain certain food ingredients. Instead of feeling frustrated, I went home and searched for those words. The next time, I was ready. Real conversations showed me what I needed to learn. I also understood that English is not about difficult grammar rules. It is about communication. When you use English every day, you stop thinking about rules. You start thinking about meaning. You focus on your message. Of course, there were days when I felt tired. There were days when I did not want to practice. But I remembered how far I had come. I remembered the boy who was too afraid to speak in a cafe. Now, I was speaking with customers, tourists, and teammates. That memory gave me motivation. If you want to improve your English, do not keep it inside your books. Take it into your life. Speak in small situations. Ask simple questions. Answer with short sentences. Listen carefully. Repeat what you hear. Practice does not need to be perfect. It needs to be regular. Today, English feels natural to me. It is part of my routine. I still learn new words. I still make mistakes sometimes. But I am not afraid. I use English as a tool to connect with people. Remember this. Language lives in real life. When you use English daily, it becomes stronger. When you speak often, your confidence grows. Step by step, day by day, your struggle becomes your strength. Chapter 6. The Day. Everything changed. The morning arrived quietly, as if it did not want to disturb the fragile peace that had finally settled over Daniel's life. The sunlight slipped gently through the thin curtains of his small room, painting golden lines across the cracked walls. For the first time in years, he did not wake up with fear sitting heavily on his chest. He woke up with purpose. He lay still for a moment, listening to the sounds outside. Children were laughing somewhere down the street. A vendor was calling out prices in a cheerful voice. Life was moving forward, and for once, Daniel felt like he was moving with it instead of against it. He sat up slowly and looked at the notebook resting on his desk. It was the same notebook he had once used to hide his pain. The pages that were once filled with tears and angry words were now filled with plans, ideas, and dreams. He had written goals for himself. He had written promises. Most importantly, he had written one sentence that he read every morning. "I am not my past." He whispered the words out loud. They felt stronger each time he said them. His phone vibrated suddenly, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a message from Mr. Harris, his English teacher. The man who had once stopped Daniel after class and told him he had a gift for storytelling. The man who had believed in him when no one else did. "Don't forget the competition today. Be there by 10 a.m. Proud of you." Daniel stared at the message, his heart pounding faster. The city-wide writing competition. Months ago, he would have laughed at the idea of standing on a stage and reading his story to strangers. He would have said he was not good enough. He would have said people like him did not win things. But people change. He got dressed carefully, choosing his cleanest shirt and pressing it with his hands to smooth out the wrinkles. He looked at himself in the mirror. The boy staring back at him still carried the scars of his past, but there was something new in his eyes. Confidence. As he stepped outside, the air felt different. Not because the world had changed, but because he had. The community hall was already crowded when he arrived. Students from different schools stood in small groups, holding papers and whispering nervously. Some looked confident, others looked terrified. Daniel felt both emotions at the same time. Mr. Harris spotted him and walked over with a wide smile. "I knew you would come," he said. Daniel nodded. "I almost didn't." "But you did," Mr. Harris replied softly. "That is what matters." They sat together near the back while the competition began. One by one, students walked onto the stage and read their stories. Some were funny, some were dramatic, some were poetic. Daniel listened carefully, but his mind kept drifting to his own story. It was not just a story. It was his life. When his name was finally called, his legs felt heavy. For a second, he thought about staying seated. He thought about pretending he did not hear them. The old fear tried to crawl back into his heart. Then he remembered the notebook. He remembered the sentence. "I am not my past." He stood up. Each step toward the stage felt like a victory. The lights were bright, and the audience was larger than he expected. Faces blurred together as he reached the microphone. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded his paper. He took a deep breath, and he began. He spoke about a boy who grew up feeling invisible, a boy who believed the cruel words spoken to him at home, a boy who thought pain was normal. He spoke about loneliness, about silent tears at night, about wishing to disappear. The room grew quiet. Then he spoke about a teacher who noticed him, about the power of one kind sentence, about discovering that words could build bridges instead of walls. He spoke about learning to forgive, not because others deserved it, but because he deserved peace. His voice grew steadier with every paragraph. He was no longer just reading. He was living the words again, but this time with strength instead of shame. When he finished, there was silence for a moment. A long, deep silence. Then the applause began. It was not polite clapping. It was loud. It was powerful. It was real. Daniel blinked back tears as he stepped away from the microphone. He did not know whether he would win. At that moment, it did not matter. He had faced his fear. He had spoken his truth. He had proven something to himself. An hour later, the judges returned with the results. Third place was announced, not his name. Second place was announced, not his name. His heart began to sink slightly, but he reminded himself that he had already won something greater than a trophy. And first place goes to Daniel Thompson. For a second, he thought he imagined it. Mr. Harris grabbed his shoulder. "That is you." The hall erupted into applause again as Daniel walked back to the stage. This time, his steps were lighter. When the trophy was placed in his hands, it felt heavier than he expected. Not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. It represented every night he had cried quietly. It represented every time he chose not to give up. It represented the moment he decided his story would not end in pain. As he looked out at the audience, he noticed something unexpected. In the back of the hall, standing near the door, was his mother. She was not clapping loudly. She was not smiling widely. But she was there. Her eyes were fixed on him, and for the first time he did not see anger in them. He saw something else: regret, pride, maybe even hope. Their eyes met briefly. Daniel did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not know whether their relationship would ever fully heal. But he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer the scared little boy hiding in his room. He was a writer. He was a survivor. He was someone who had turned pain into power. As he walked off the stage, trophy in hand, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time: freedom. And this was only the beginning.